Hey, while we're waiting, Tom, one of the things I did send an email back to you, if we could maybe get advance notice of our meetings, the agenda, and even time and date of the meeting, particularly when I was away from the last meeting. It'll help me better prepare.
Yeah, actually, I replied to you and said our meetings are always the first and third Wednesdays of the month at 5 p.m. And normally the agendas are posted the Thursday before the meetings.
Where are they posted?
They are posted on the site, and I think Michelle also typically sends them out.
I didn't get it until I requested a time and an agenda today.
Okay, we'll make sure you get on the email list then. I'm sorry for the oversight.
Because I wasn't present during the last meeting, so I was kind of in limbo. I thought it was every other Wednesday. That's why I checked with her today.
Yeah, first and third Wednesdays.
Thank you.
Hey, Steve, if you're ever looking for one, go ahead.
Yep. All right, we're a little after 5, so I'm going to open the waiting room for the public and open the meeting. All right, welcome everyone. I'm just going to read the open virtual meeting language and then open the meeting. Pursuant to Mayor LaChapelle's May 19th, 2020 mayor authorization in accordance with Massachusetts 940 CMR 2910, this meeting of the Easthampton Board of Public Works will be conducted via remote participation. Michelle, could we get a roll call attendance for who's present?
Thomas Malsbury.
Present.
David Fagnan.
Present.
Stephen Litwin.
Present.
All right, I'm going to make a motion to open the Board of Public Works meeting on December 1st at 5 p.m. via remote participation.
I will second.
Thomas Malsbury.
Yes.
David Fagnan.
Yes.
Stephen Litwin.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
All right, meeting is open. Our standing agenda item number 1 is public speak. Looks like we do have a few members of the public on the call with us this evening. If you would like to speak to the board or director about anything not on the agenda, please feel free to speak now. All right, we're going to move on to the second item on our agenda is mayoral speak. Greg, do you know if the mayor was planning on joining us this evening?
I was told yesterday that she was, but I'm not sure.
All right, well, we can leave that open and revisit if she wants to speak to something other than an agenda item. Item number 3 is approval of the November 17th meeting. That was a meeting that Dave and I were present at, so we'll be the voting members on that. Dave, did you get a chance to look at the minutes from last month?
Yes, I did, Thomas.
Any issue with that as Michelle prepared them?
They look fine.
Yep, fairly simple meeting. So yes. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as received.
And I will second that.
Thomas Malsbury.
Yes.
David Fagnan.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
All right. Item number 4. Greg asked to invite Ty and Bond to speak with us a little bit more about, starting the groundwork for discussion of the FY23 rate structure and beyond. So I will turn the meeting over to Greg to introduce the topic and who's with us this evening.
All right, so tonight we have Tracy Adamski, Mike and Tiffany LeBrie from Ty and Bond I was hoping they could join us and we could, the board could give them, their ideas. We could hear their ideas and get some input from the board as to what direction we'd like to, anything specific we want to look at as we look at a longer term rate structure for FY23 and 24, 25. And just kind of, Thomas and Dave, you were both involved in the last hearing that kind of ended abruptly when the pandemic hit, and I wanted to get Tom Bond's feelings, thoughts of where we're at, and collect any that you guys have, and kind of develop a scope with Time Bond that we can work from to develop a rate structure for the next few years.
Sounds good.
Thanks so much, Greg, for inviting us to participate in the meeting tonight. As Greg mentioned, I'm Tiffany LeBrie. I'm from Ty and Bond. I've done a little bit of wastewater engineering services for the city of Easthampton in the past. Also proud to be a Easthampton native. And I'm here today with Tracy Adamski and Mike Schrader, who Tracy was the project manager working with the team from Ty and Bond as well as Kleinfelder on the recent integrated plan for the city, and Mike, of course, worked on the rate study work. So we assembled this team here today to help out and try to identify what the scope of work is that we might be able to help you with moving forward. So from that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Tracy and Mike.
And I'll say I'm here more on the stormwater side. So with the IWRMP, we took a kind of initial broad look at a stormwater utility, and then working with Mike when we were looking at the, updating the overall rate structure, we looked at stormwater. And I'm here to hear what your input is on the stormwater utility and to provide some insight there. I'll turn it over to Mike.
Hi, I'm trying to find the rest of my screen here. As they both said, yeah, we worked on the water and wastewater rates before the pandemic. And I think, my thoughts on where we are is to, look at where the last 2 years of data in terms of usage, revenues, expenses, and, to update ourselves where you are currently. And then probably the most important thing is to go through the capital improvement plan data for both water, sewer, and stormwater, and figure out, what's happened in the last 2 years, what projects we need to push forward, what projects got done, and anything new that has come up since then. And, keep under the premise that the stormwater will be funded under the sewer or the /water sewer combined enterprise, and then see what it looks like, see what the rate impacts look like for, typical residential for some of your larger customers, and, look at that. In terms of rate structure, we can talk about that more and look at, equity amongst the different rate classes between the small users and the big users and the commercial and residential and that kind of thing. But I don't want to say it's straightforward if you want to just keep the way you are, the rate structure that you have now. And then at the same time, we can open it up to look at, all kinds of different options in terms of how the rates are structured.
I'm interested in, thank you, Mike, by the way. As Thomas stated, we actually, obviously we started this process how many years ago now, right? And then it all got, I'm really interested in how the users of Easthampton are going to pay. And I think going forward, we should look at modernizing within reason how we, especially when we go to this stormwater thing. Thomas, I don't know how you feel, but
I agree that
by 470 parcels and everybody pays X amount. I'm actually not comfortable with that method of going into the stormwater side of this. So.
Sorry, Thomas, I can't see. Is it, can I chime in on that?
No, I was more speaking to, I also would be interested, I understand we have a rate structure that's been in place for quite some time, but I think like you and I had spoken at some point about looking at, like Dave said, some more modern methods of tackling the core costs that the hard costs that the water and sewer treatment plant have to meet, and have an additional use rate on top of that. I know what Dave's speaking to is more for how the stormwater was presented with the, sort of the single unit rate, and then, calculating larger parcels as multiples of that. I can see that as being an interim solution, because the other one, I know some other cities have looked at, actual watershed areas for each property, but that creates a lot of mapping overhead and, may not be easy to implement on day one. So, I think we'd be interested in looking at all sorts of models, but, also working towards, a standard rate as we have now, as a backup plan if it's harder to develop or sell a more modern plan.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is that, the perception, I think the public perception often of the stormwater utility is that they're now being charged for something that was free before, just to put it simply. And I think the way, we look at it is it's work that the city needs to do because you're required to do it. You have a permit, you have requirements, and it comes down to how do you share that cost back to your users, if you will, in an equitable fashion. And
right.
It makes more sense to continue doing it, on the water and sewer, where I think of the cost causation on the customer side. If you use, 100 gallons of water, you're going to pay for 100 gallons of water. If, you use the sewer, you pay for the sewer. But under stormwater, it's typically paid for either under the general fund, which comes out of property taxes. So your valuation of your home, regardless of anything else, is what's driving that. Or in your case, because it's bundled in the sewer, then it's the amount of sewage that you're generating is what's, causing your stormwater bill. And, the idea is that you're providing a better, more equitable way for the customers to pay for that, so that they're not, it doesn't have anything to do with the price of their house or their wastewater usage. And that's really the whole concept, is that it's not something instead of nothing. This is the better way to pay for that. And, we can certainly go back through, some of the situations that we looked at, or the rate structures we looked at. And the same thing with water and wastewater. You look at, it's the equity between, two customers. Are the small users, that use a minimal amount of water, are they subsidizing large users because of the structure? And, this is all closed systems. If someone's going to pay more, someone else has to pay less, or vice versa. And it's really just figuring out what's the best way to assign their costs. And to give them a way of understanding it so that they can, to some degree, manage that cost.
Yes.
If I can jump in on the stormwater side, we typically use impervious surface to, as a we don't have meters that we can meter for the rainfall. So we use impervious surface, as a stand-in for that. And there is some, I'll say, decent planning related or planning level data that we can get from Mass GIS and the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. They had, overlapped some data through Mass GIS. There's a revised impervious surface data as well as building layer that we can, identify. I'll say, in general terms, impervious surface per parcels. And then, to your point, Dave, we can, parcel that out. So, some communities decide to have single family residences as a flat structure. Some have, developed more tiered structure. So it's based on, I'll say just for residents, it's based on the use and then the amount of impervious surface. So that may become a more equitable way to, share or, divide these costs and apply those fees. And then you have to think about what do you do for your commercial developments. And, some of the larger parcels that have a larger area of impervious surface are things like the mill buildings. So, do you look at options for like credits? There's a lot of new stormwater management systems behind, the Pleasant Street mills.
Right.
So maybe there's opportunities to reduce their fee, because their fee may be higher because of the amount of impervious surface on their lots, but maybe there's some options for credits there. So it's looking at a number of these options. And as Mike said, we can look at, a few different options for your review.
I think one of the issues we heard in the public hearing were from residents who said, they're in a part of the city where their property doesn't run off to a storm system, and why were they paying into it? And I think we need to figure out not justification, but the explanation that, they're still utilizing Easthampton's stormwater system through roads. Roads are a major contributor to the stormwater system, sort of that common asset that, all residents share into. So I think that needs to be, explained in whatever presentation we make as well.
Yeah.
And I guess it depends on how, when it comes to stormwater, there definitely is a learning curve.
Right.
So, we can help with that and, kind of explain how all of this benefits the entire city, and how it also benefits like the resources that everyone in the city benefits from, the Connecticut River, the Nashawanak Ponds, all of the efforts that are going on related to stormwater and the MS4 permit are enhancing those resource areas.
Yeah, understood. I just don't know if that was an aspect of the presentation last time that was missing. It felt like that was, a common issue we heard after the meeting or during the meetings. So, yeah, whatever we can do for education and outreach leading up to the public hearings or as part of a series, planning a series of public hearings and not assuming it would be a one-off again. So.
So, again, I think, well, as I already stated, I'm willing to look at options on how we're, especially the new stormwater thing, Thomas. So.
Oh, yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I would, I think we should see what other communities are doing and what would be a good fit for Easthampton and get some public input on those models as well. And then pick a direction or two for more development for a final public hearing. But
And then, and little background for Steve, Thomas was pretty new and I was very new last time we did a public meeting on this. So
I believe, yeah, you were still emergency appointee status at
I
that.
think it was my first meeting and I got thrown right into the fire on that baby.
That was I was very early as well, a couple months in, and I think it was my second chair.
I think it was. So I had read what's our plan, the integrated water plan. So
Yeah.
that's all that was it. And I was like, oh my goodness, what is going on here?
Yeah.
I think we need to get Steve one of those though, too.
Yeah, if he hasn't gotten one already, he should review that. But also we should,
Great read, Steve, too, by the way.
well, like
Sounds
Mike had said, Greg has really made pretty good strides on tackling items on that list that the DPW could do themselves. And, we've had a few emergency repairs that have escalated some things that were lower on the list. So it would be nice to see even just an updated appendix of, 2021, 22 status of that critical spreadsheet. With sort of the greatest hits that we think we're going to have to tackle in the next 3 to 5 years. But yeah, Greg has done well finding other funding and other mechanisms for tackling some of those outside of, our rate increases.
And then, Greg, if you mentioned the time bond, well, I know we've just started this, the irrigation thing,
Yeah, this is part of the discussion,
the
I guess.
potential of,
Yeah, part of the bigger discussion. I think looking at a flat rate for single family homes is probably it would be great if we can. I mean, we'd have to, of course, look at that and see what the numbers can be and go from there. But I think a single family home flat rate, or two family and below, something of that nature would be. I just don't want to put a big burden on homeowners in town, nor business owners, really. I mean, it's going to be a challenging discussion either way. And I think the more we have Ty and Bond's involvement and the more public hearings and education we can do, we can get a better rate structure in that, people are more understanding of. So.
right.
And just for the record, I see that the mayor has joined us. Mayor, do you have anything you'd like to add or anything off agenda that you would like to speak to?
No, I wanted to listen in. I mean, it's a very contentious topic. I like the approach that the board is taking. I'm really appreciative of it. And the public hearing and putting a presentation together with Time Bond seems very important, and walking through, and certainly the city can do some pre-education or post-education through social media and text and whatnot. And of course the meeting would be filmed. So I like the approach. I like Greg's sentiment around paying good attention to homeowners and try to evenly distribute the burden of costs on services that will only go up. So thank you.
Yeah, I think what we learned, just for everyone's education, last year for the FY22 rates, we were afraid we were going to have a shortfall. So we actually passed a 1-year rate adjustment, which I thought was going to be a very hard sell in the middle of a pandemic. But we learned that, we had a series of public hearings where we, pretty explicitly tried to educate and explain exactly what the rate would be going for and what the impact to users would be. And I thought we'd have a little bit of resistance, and we presented like a 6%, 7%, and 8% option. And I was hoping we might be able to persuade everyone that the 6% would be acceptable. But when everybody, basically heard the presentation, even members of the public were like, well, then we should probably just go for the rate 8% to cover it. And I was actually fairly shocked that was the way we went, but it was, I feel, due to education and presentation, that it was, once everybody understood what was at issue and what the impacts would be, it was everybody sort of came together and agreed. So I'm hoping we don't have a repeat of how it was received at our initial public hearing pre-pandemic, that, with education and outreach and clear examples, we can, get community buy-in and have this supported instead of resisted.
Tom, is there a timeline, even a kind of a sketch of a timeline for public hearings, or we're just talking about overall how to approach?
I think this right now we're
system.
overall how to approach. Greg would like this passed, at least, ideally for the FY23, which would mean it would have to be in place in June of 2022.
Okay.
So we would back calculate from there. I would expect to start public hearings or education early in 2022 and maybe do the monthly up until May or something.
Okay, great. Just making a note.
Oh yeah, some of those, I know you had mentioned that there is a method for like a workshop or, a working group where we can have public discussions. So we might do a series of those sort of as educational things. And then, April, May, start a public hearings series with a vote in May or June. So
excellent. Happy to support that.
Okay. Yeah, I would also like those to be public attended events as well, or recorded and broadcast with support of the city to get the word out for people to watch them post.
Yeah, we can do either one. Either one. Yep.
Okay. Do other members of the board have any issues with that as a rough framework that we could start working towards this fall? This spring?
Absolutely not. No, I totally agree. So we need to set up, like we've already talked about, this workshop structure so we can talk back and forth and try to figure out where we want to go.
Right.
Because we can only speak in public, which is great. But so we need to speak in public.
Yes.
Yeah, and you just I'll put how the work sessions can actually Lindsay has the guidelines for those in public forums, so there can be conversation and we're not breaking open meeting law around agendas and possible votes. So we'll work on framing that. And then what the best virtual tool would be for you guys to use, and my office can support like moderation or setting up a certain way.
All right, we'll look for that information from Lindsay then. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair.
Mike, yes.
One thought is, I believe you bill quarterly for water and sewer.
Yes.
So we'd want to, in my opinion, we'd want to make the decision on rate changes, say before April, so that it's before that. You want it to change with the beginning of the fiscal year, but you bill in arrears. So people have that sense that you've changed the price after they started using something.
Understood.
Everybody will swear that they never would have used that much water if you knew you're going to raise it a nickel. So to avoid that, we like to make those decisions before they start that meter reading
cycle.
Yeah. That way everybody's Okay.
We will then work towards that goal if Greg agrees, or if we want to do it as a half year. I don't know what the timeline would be. It's a little tighter to get public education and buy-in for a multi-year structure.
Yeah.
What was that, Dave?
I said that might be a little tight, but
okay.
It makes the most sense. Like, absolutely.
Yeah. Greg, do you have anything you'd like to add that you don't feel the board or Time Bond has addressed or discussed?
No, I think the important thing in the scope we put together with Time Bond is to carry a few, three, I don't know if I should call them public meetings or public hearings, but just events where we can communicate with the community and, like you said, try to get some buy-in to what we're doing. So I think the more the more people know, the less resistant they are to what we're trying to do. So,
Yep.
Yeah, and then I know there's some examples, or a lot of examples in the previous document, but especially, Thomas, if we get into these workshops, some ideas of the ways we can rate structure this.
Yeah, I've done a little research on my own, but I would like to see, something from Ty and Bond on models they're familiar with and that they've seen implemented elsewhere with success, or ones they've actually seen or not success, where it wasn't as well received or as functional as anticipated, and some hybrid of those that might work for us, or
Yeah, and then if the board can get that information at some point, not just in these meetings,
Yep.
and then obviously the director. So we have something that we can, instead of just talking in vague generalities,
Yep.
we have something that we can actually talk about.
Yep.
Okay.
Understood.
so Mike, Tracy, Tiffany, do you kind of have enough from what we discussed to put something together for us?
I think so.
Yeah, I just would like to reiterate, I think we're at a point where if we're going to do something like this, it would be nice to revamp the system for equity and modernization, and sort of future-proofing the new structure of municipal services, but also have a fallback if we need to stay within our current structure for another cycle. But I think this is a very good opportunity with a new director and a supportive mayor and education outreach that we could make a good change for the city moving forward.
Way to be.
Okay.
Great, thank you, guys.
If it sounds counterintuitive, but if you had individuals that specifically were vocal about stormwater the last time, it's not a bad idea to bring them in and try to suss out what their concerns were. And we've seen cases where someone who was the biggest opponent becomes a proponent because now they understand, yes, we looked at that, yes, we went through that too, and it didn't work out, or this was the best solution. So it's I don't know. As awkward as it could be, I'd rather do that than get sandbagged at a public meeting, where
Absolutely.
you don't see them coming.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think that's counterintuitive. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Good idea. We should have minutes from that public hearing we can see.
Yes.
Well,
We should, and I think we did sort of assemble a list of questions I can dig back up that were sort of outstanding from the first public hearing that we sent to Ty and Bond for answering for the second public meeting that didn't happen. So, just some of the legalities of the structure and how other municipalities were instituting it in face of that. So.
Yep. Well, I, for one, I'm excited. I've been waiting.
You've been waiting? Yeah, sorry we put everything on a 2-year pause.
yeah.
No, and hopefully you guys made out well during the pandemic. Usually most towns did a little extra usage and whatnot, so.
Yeah. Actually, one thing, Greg, that does fit into this discussion, I know we talked about a year ago about sort of tracking our stormwater, potential future stormwater enterprise costs sort of in a separate bucket from standard DPW work. Is that something that would bear any data, or have you been carrying forward sort of compartmentalizing those costs as because I know before Mike had sort of just extracted we assume 40% or whatever of the stormwater costs are buried in the sewer overhead.
Yeah, I mean, we've been tracking, some data in regards to where it's difficult to do because the phone rings and I have to send the guys in another direction. So
No, I understand that, but just sort of like the catch basin back out events.
Absolutely, yeah, we've got
repairs, outfall rebuilds, stuff like that. That
we've got a lot more data than we used to, especially in regards to like catch basin cleaning and sewer flushing and things like that. So
yeah, street sweeping, stuff like that, that we can give to Mike and them and Tracy to sort of say these are known hard stormwater costs that are not, sanitary sewer costs that we've been paying out of the, sewer enterprise fund.
Yep.
I know it won't be exact, but it'll at least give a harder number for them to start working and estimate from.
Yeah, that'll be helpful. A lot of communities, are in the same boat where they've never really tracked stormwater costs separately before. So
yeah,
having some data will be very helpful.
Yeah, we tried to do that for this current fiscal, to give you some numbers. We knew this was coming back up, so.
Great.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. We all remember that public hearing.
Yes.
Thank you very much for coming back after that, Dave.
That's why we got it. That's why I'm still here. We have to figure this out. That's what I said after that meeting. I said, all right.
No joke. Like sometimes I'm like, is this a responsibility or something that I'm, really enjoying, but I do want to see this through. And I think it's a critical point for the city. And,
I came in right there and I want to see this. We need to see this, or I feel I want to see this through.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah. Even though it was a horrible meeting. So.
It was very.
This one wasn't bad.
Yeah. No. It was important.
It was a horrible meeting. I'm sure Ty and Bond has seen a lot of these things. So.
No, but I think it was, for what it was, it did show us that we didn't convey our message well, that it was not well received, and I don't want to repeat that. So I think it was good in that respect that we knew that there was resistance and that we need to, and we also know it's what's right for the city, so we need to bridge those two facts. So
and the citizens were respectful. It's not like there was people yelling or anything like that.
No,
but there was.
It was a passionate discussion.
Absolutely, 100%. Yes.
And now we know that that's where we are working from. So.
Yep.
I need to hop off and get ready for City Council, but again, thank you to the Board of Public Works. I know it's been really tough over the last couple of years, and I'm thrilled to hear about a new approach to rates and really forward thinking. And my thanks to Michelle and Greg as staff and Tracy and Mike for putting it together and walking us through the process. I hope I don't jinx any of us here, but I am looking forward to the public meetings and workshops. So I'll get Lindsay in touch with you, Tom.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bye. Yeah.
All right, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, if there's any more discussion, I believe we still have one or two members of the public with us. If you'd like to weigh in or speak to anything we've spoken of on this topic, feel free to unmute yourself. Otherwise, I'm going to close discussion on this and we can let Ty and Bond have the remainder of their evenings and we can continue on. All right. Well, thank you guys for your time. Thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing what you can.
Thanks, everyone.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll move on to item number 5 on our agenda, Director's Report.
So I just kind of wanted to give you guys a quick update on where things are at with Main Street tonight. So Warner Brothers is planning to pretty much pack everything in for the winter by the end of this week. They did some of the line striping, some of you may have seen go down today, is all temporary. That'll be, we think it'll be worn off by the spring, and then the thermoplastic lines that we use now will be put down, but it's just been too cold at this time of the year to put those down and meet the manufacturer warranty. specifications. So we'll have them put the right line painting down in the spring. So everything as far as lines goes now you see is fairly temporary. The foundations for the RFBs at South Street and Glendale Street are installed, and tentatively they are slated to be installed this year, but those are just bolt to the bases. So it's not a big undertaking for Warner Brothers to come back and do if they pack up and leave town this weekend. So they've completed most of the driveway aprons. There is a few that they'll be back to do in the spring. And I've kind of asked them to prioritize any further work at South and Main Street to get that crossing as safe as we can as the school starts to see more use, as the new school, kind of comes along. So, but the work in the spring there'll be some more sidewalk panel replacements. And in the spring, I want to take a real good look at our budget and what we have left and see if there's some other sections of sidewalk we can do out there that we maybe didn't prioritize right now, but can afford to do in the project and tackle them in the spring. I want to get as much done out there as we can with what we're able to use for resources. So, and then there's 6 trees that are being removed as part of the project. Those will happen as long as the weather holds out for another week or two. Those will happen too, but most of the work they're kind of packing in for the year. So other than that, we're just kind of getting trucks and everything ready for the weather to change here. We've been pretty fortunate. I don't think we've put any salt down yet, and it's December 1st, so that's kind of rare. I think the last few Novembers we had some decent snowstorms towards the end of the month. So that's kind of where the department's at for now.
Great.
I just want to thank you for your time coming out last weekend for the New City walk shop.
Yeah, that was great. Oh, speaking of New City, we did some of the smoke testing of the sewer that happened Tuesday this week, and there was a bunch of flow testing they did on Monday, and everything went fairly well. So, we know that the water infrastructure over there is aged, and when we get down there for doing sanitary sewer repairs and things, we're going to want to change out some of the water main. But the flows that we saw were pretty good, and we didn't find. I think we found one maybe minor cross connection that we ended up with a little smoke in a catch basin. But other than that, everything looked pretty tight. So anxious to report the final reports, but that was kind of the quick field report from some of the work Fuss and O'Neill did there this week. So
very good.
And I also did speak with VHB yesterday about the next steps with Parsons and Ferry. They're working on getting a budget estimate for us to replace and move back the first 120 feet of that wall from Parsons Street towards Emerald Place. And then they're going to also prepare a number for us that would include replacement of the entire wall. So they think the initial section from Emerald towards Parsons can remain in place, and then the final 120 feet be moved back and subsequently raised. So I'm interested to see what those numbers look like and whether it's a project we can kind of pursue.
Okay.
Understood.
Yeah.
Great to hear.
The other thing that we've been working with them about, I've also been working with the mayor, and I believe Councilor Peak's going to be involved in our discussion next week, Holyoke Street. And if Holyoke Street's getting to be in pretty poor shape. Heading out of town, it's not too bad from the gas company's restoration work last year, but coming into town, it's coming apart. I think after this winter, we're really going to need to make some moves there. So I've been got VHB working on a scope for us to do a project. I guess I'll say it'll be very similar to what we've just done on Main Street, with a look at a couple of the crossings on Holyoke Street and how we can make them a little safer, and some budget numbers for a mill and overlay of Mountain Road. So ideally, I'm not sure we'll be able to fund all of it, but I do want to have a good idea of what that's going to cost. So basically to take Holyoke Street, do something similar to what we did to Main, from Cottage to Hendrick Street, and then just kind of a mill and overlay of the mountain, because Mountain Road, it's very hard for us to get up there and patch and do things that road. We want to keep it in as great a shape as we can, and a quick mill and overlay rather than letting it deteriorate would be, I think, a very wise choice for us. So.
Mm-hmm.
All good
Keep you guys
projects.
surprised as those come together, as the scope for that Holyoke Street work comes together.
Okay, and you said Councilor Peak may be joining us?
Yeah, he had brought some concerns forward about the
Okay,
safety of a couple crosswalks.
understood.
And
I was just confused as to his, I mean, I know it's his precinct,
Yep.
so, but,
yeah, I think it was primarily East Green and Holyoke. And that's another one like South Street where, there may have been a sidewalk there at one point and the business adjacent, kind of took it over and you can't see it. It got paved over. I can't say what happened years ago, but
understood.
we need to get some survey on and have them look at, see what we can make there for refuge areas where the crosswalks come across the street. And
Okay.
I envision an RRFB there, but we'll see what VHP can come up with. I just wanted to let you know that we are looking at that. So,
Okay, we'll look forward to it as a future agenda item then. All right,
thank you guys.
Any of the board have any questions for Dave, for Greg?
Not I.
Not I? All right. Well,
Dave.
thank you very much for your time and for another meeting. And I think we had a great discussion and I look forward to where it's going to go from here. I will make a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting, and I believe our next meeting would be December 15th, correct, Michelle?
Yes.
All right. We will adjourn the meeting if I can get a second.
I'll second that. Sure.
Thomas Salisbury,
Yes.
David Fagnan,
Yes.
Stephen Litwin,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries. Good night.
Good
All
night.
right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good evening.